So, welcome back. I think today we should carry on from where we left off last. We looked at Ajax last time, jQuery Ajax. So today I want us to look at something called deferreds. So, I think I'll share my entire screen. So, what are deferreds? I think I prepared some notes here on what deferreds are. So, deferreds. Deferreds are basically a mechanism that we are supposed to use to run asynchronous operations in jQuery. And I will demonstrate how that works. By default, jQuery is an asynchronous process, which means it runs processes asynchronously. So it's not going to wait for you to be able to complete some task, then it is now able to carry on with the next task. Let me demonstrate that using what we call the set timeout interval. Then we are able to see how this plays out. So I have my code over here. I'll just basically mask this out. This is from last time. So down here, let me create a function. Let me create a variable here. So I'll simply say here, let my name equals blank. Or just let my name. Then I'll say set timeout interval, this one. And I want to change the name here. This my name, sorry, my name equals Richard. Then I want this one to run for 2 seconds. Then down here, I want to output my name, okay? My name, like that, isn't it? Now, if you look at that code, what do you presume would happen? Any assumption?
It do not have anything. It
It
do
do not
not
have,
have anything until after 2 seconds.
it do not have anything until after 2 seconds.
After 2 seconds, now it will output. It will output your name, Richard.
So let's do this. So let's run localhost jQuery Ajax. Run it here. Now I'll just display the console here because that's what I want us to see. Let me clear this console, then
Mm,
refresh this list. You can see it is showing undefined.
mm,
So basically, how jQuery works is like that. I'll say define my name, it doesn't have a variable. Then I run this function for 2 seconds, then I output this. Now it will output this whether the 2 seconds are over or not. So it will not wait for these 2 seconds to be over. Assign the name Richard here, then it is able to output. But if I went down here and I say console.log my name, then we'll be able to see a different experience altogether. So I run that. You will see it puts undefined. After 2 seconds, it outputs Richard.
mm.
Now that's how,
Why?
yeah.
Why is that? Why is that? What's the logic?
jQuery is asynchronous, which means it will execute and it will not wait for this to finish. It will continue downwards. But when this one
Oh,
finishes, then it will output the value over here.
oh.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
previously we were solving this problem with things called callbacks, but callbacks become very complicated, especially when you're dealing with difficult logic. Say, for example, I want to populate some certain fields inside my form, then I select those fields after they have been populated. You get that kind of a scenario. It becomes a little bit complicated, and that's why they introduced the deferreds. So, what is a deferred and what does it do? So, a deferred is basically, as we have said, the mechanism that we use to control how JavaScript will be able uh, to uh, uh, execute synchronously. So, let me convert this to a deferred. So, I'll say here const a constant called dfd equals. You can put the new keyword, but if you leave it out, jQuery will handle it for you. Then you put deferred like that. That becomes a deferred object. Then what you do here is you simply resolve the default. The default has different elements that it returns. So you can either resolve, you can reject, or you can wait. So resolve, which means it has executed successfully, reject, which means it has failed, and of course wait is if you want to get the status as you carry on. So here I'll simply say deferred dot resolve, like that. Okay. Then after that, now I can be able to output this value. So ideally, this should be able to fix that issue that I saw, but I don't want to write it this way. Let me write it another way as a function. So I'll write a function like this: function get my name. Then I'll simply say set timeout, like that. Then here I'll put, I can say here, let my name be blank. Then I'll have it, sorry, I'll paste that code here. My name is Richard. Then from here, I'll simply say dfd. No, this is I'm just rewriting this function so that now it is in the form of a function. So this we said is 2 seconds. Then I want to output this value down here. So console.log my name. So when the program starts, I'll simply say get my name, right? So that will execute that function. And of course, there are better ways of doing this. You can make it a self-invoking function, but for now, I don't want to complicate our program more than that. So that function, if I run it again here, I'll end up with the same effect that I had. You can see it's undefined. But if I was to output the data inside here, it will output it after 2 seconds. So undefined Richard. So it works fine, right? So now let's try this as a deferred so that we don't see this undefined. So try this as a deferred. I'll maintain this. So I'll say uh, function new name get my new name. Now within this function, first of all, I'll declare a deferred. Of course, I can let um my name. Then I'll declare a constant deferred is you can use new keyword. Then jQuery dot deferred, like that. Then of course you can do whatever it is you want to do. So in 2 seconds, I want to say my name is equals my name is equals to Richard. Then what I want to do here is actually I can declare my name outside here so that it's part of the program. I think that makes it a little bit interesting. So let's declare my name up here. That doesn't change the logic. So I'll declare my name here. So once I'm declaring my name, I'll come here and say the deferred variable, I want to resolve it, which means I want to be able to say that it was successful. Then what I will do here is I will return a limited version of the deferred. So I'll simply say here, return the deferred object, then I'll return the promise object because it will give me a promise. So ideally what it's saying is I will execute this code over here, and when I'm done, I will give you a promise. So I will tell you that I'm done with this particular promise, and now you can be able to carry on with whatever it is that you wanted to execute. Okay, so here I can say get my name. The forget my name won't change anything. The code will execute exactly as it were. So it will put undefined. After 2 seconds, it outputs Richard, as you can see. But now we want to run the second version of the application, and let's see how it works. Now, how to run the second version is you're going to run it like this. I'll simply say get my name. Now, but because it's going to return a promise, I'll simply say dot done. When it is done, then do whatever it is that you want to do. So I can simply say here console.log my name, like that. So here what I'm trying to say is Get my name, go and execute, wait until you get a promise. Once you're told that it has executed successfully, then output the name over here. Are you together? So let's run that and see how it works out. So I'll run that. Sorry. Mm, let my name. Am I logging anything? I think I'm not refresh this. Refresh this. No, it's not doing what I wanted to do. Just a minute. Why is it giving me undefined? So I think this is jQuery. Yeah, this is jQuery. It's loaded. So get my new name. Yeah. That actually looks okay. Why is it not? Why is it not doing what I want it to do? Because I don't expect it to run. I don't expect it to display. I don't expect it. Oh, Richard is not defined. So 131. Yeah, my name is a variable. Oh, sorry. Actually, even this was should have been there. So I did not do this correctly. So five. Uh, why is it not? Hmm. Why is that not working? Because ideally that should work. That should work. Why is it not? Let me check. Because I have my. Okay, let me just look up the deferred variable. Am I misspelling it? I think it's deferred with a double R. Um, Deferred with a double R. Yeah, yeah, that's what I put. That should not affect it. So, this is strange because that should actually work. That should actually work. I'm not sure why that isn't working. Because the whole idea of deferred is let me just explain to you practically how I would use it. I have data that is coming from an API somewhere. I need to be able to fetch that data, wait for that data to come, then I populate that data or I work with that data. So, for example, I might want to populate a few fields with some certain values. Then, once that field has been updated, then I am able to set the value of that particular element. I don't know why this is not working for me, but this is extremely strange. But again, let me use a practical example and see how this works out. Because ideally, this should have been able to work if I get my new name and I've declared a deferred over here. Well, I can use var deferred, then I'll execute whatever I want to execute. I will resolve the defer. Then after 2 seconds, once the deferred has been resolved, then I'm able to return a promised a limited version of the deferred, which now tells this particular function when it is done, and from there it should be able to output this value. So why is that not working? That's strange. Let me just review this again. Get my new name. It's when it's done. Okay. Then run the following callback function. Yes, which is oh sorry. When it's done, I'm supposed to run a callback function like that. Then this should be inside the callback function. I think I'm the one who was writing it wrongly. Yeah, I think that should now be able to work as expected. So you can see there is nothing that comes at the top. Then after 2 seconds, Richard come out. Are you together? Sorry, I'm the one who was writing it wrongly. I was not running a callback function, but rather I was just outputting the text directly. That's the problem that I was having. Are you together?
So the whole idea is to have a bit of a delay.
There is not to have a bit of a delay. I'm assuming that this is going to be some request to a server somewhere. I don't know how long it's going to take to give me back the data, but once I have the
Okay.
data, then I want to be able to play around with it.
Okay.
Are we together?
All right. So this is something that
This is
the
actually
system.
how we write server-based applications because we'll be getting data from the server. We don't know how long it's going to take for the data to come back, but we have to wait for the data to come back. Then we are able
Mm.
to do our processing once we have the data.
So if we don't have the deferred, then it
If
may
if
give you an
if
error.
I reject this, for example, if I reject this deferred, for example, you will not
Mm.
see this name appear anywhere. Okay? So if I reject it, then run
Mm.
this, you will never see that name Richard here. You can see 2 seconds is over and I'm not seeing
Mm.
any results here.
Okay.
So the deferred will do two things. It will resolve, which means the data has come back, or I can reject because I got an error. Then that way I can now tell the user either I'm not able to get to the server or whatever you're requesting for was not found or things like that.
Okay.
So that's the whole point of these deferreds. So I want to use them practically so that you see how it works out. Okay. Now, this was just a primer to explain what the deferreds are and how they work. So, JavaScript, we said, works asynchronously, which means it will execute from top to bottom regardless of whatever we have inside here. So, here, if I say get my name, I will see undefined upfront because it will execute this portion of code even before this one is ended. So, it will try to execute this. As this one is executing, it goes ahead with the next line of code. That's how jQuery and JavaScript work. Okay? So when you're getting something from the server, when you tell
Mm.
JavaScript to get something from the server, it will go and get that something from the server. While it is still getting that something from the server, it will continue executing your program.
Okay.
Okay? So we just want to
Yeah.
be able to control how exactly this JavaScript is going to behave so that now we control the flow of the program. Right?
Mm. Mm.
So last time we were having a list of inventory types, and we gave examples of how we can be able to fetch that data and also show and also manipulate it. So what I want to do is I want to get this list. So once I get that particular list, I want to populate it inside a drop down. Then from that drop down, I can be able to pick a specific item. Okay, maybe say I want to pick
Mm.
item one or item two. Are we together? So I want us to use that example to cement this particular explanation as to how this really works. So I think that should be able to fit it in very well so that now we can be able to um, visualize how we can be creating our applications as we move along. Okay?
Yeah.
So um, I will remove these lines of code. I don't need them anymore. So I have this like plain object here. So what I'm going to do on my index page here, I'll just create a drop-down list. So I'll simply say select. I'll give it an ID of types. Then probably, yeah, that should be enough. Then this should be types, not a big deal. Then from here, I want to display all the types. So if I was to run this program, I just see a drop-down list with nothing. You can see it has nothing, right?
Mm.
So, well, maybe I can do a bit of styling here. So maybe I can say for the body, maybe I can say margin 0 auto so that things are at the center.
Mm.
Um, just to make it look a little bit nicer. 5, why is it handling that? Margin 0 auto, that's the body. Yeah. Okay. Max is 720 pixels. Why does the margin zero auto work? That should work. And what's wrong with me today? So, oh yeah, it works, but well, I can say padding, padding rather. Let me give it some 50 pixels all around so that it is squeezed somewhere at the center. Kidogo to just as the center so that it's off the edges kidogo. So there. So now I'm seeing a drop down here, but it has nothing. Okay.
Mm.
So we want
Mm.
to populate it with the types that we were using last time. So I'll come to my index over here and I'll simply say, now instead of using the Ajax method, I'd prefer to use, I can use the Ajax method like that. Then of course I'll give an object here with URL and data and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to use Ajax. I said I like using the get JSON method. This is a helper function that allows me to be able to fetch that data as a JSON object directly. So I don't need to do a lot of conversion. So for here, I just need the URL, and the URL we were running last time was this. This is the URL that we were running. Then once we run this URL, we'll get some data. Then after we get some data, we run a callback function. So you probably see most people do it like this. That's one way of doing it. Of course, there's a shorthand way of doing it, but let me do it this way. Then, of course, since the data is an array of objects, we want to also come here and say, declare the select list is equals to this object over here. It has an ID of types, right? So
Mm.
simply say get element with ID types. So that stores that. So here I'll simply say data dot for each. Then I can have another callback function with each type. So with the type, I'll simply say, well, I can declare a variable here. Another one say let my results equals to, or without using so many variables, I can simply say select list. So jQuery, I'll create an object called is a template string option with value of type dot type ID like that. Then it will output type dot type name. Then I'll close that option. Then I'll say this object, create the following object, then append it to. Now my A is refusing to work. Oh my goodness. My letter A
Even,
sometimes refuse. Okay, it's come back.
even type name, there was no A.
There I didn't see that. Type name. Yeah, sometimes my A refuses to work. I don't know why. So yeah, so that should be able to. It will take this text, convert it into a jQuery object, then append it to my list. If I don't want to use variables, that's how I would probably add them. So it will look through and add all of them, right? So let's check if it does that. First of all, so I'll run this, and then you can see it has actually added them. Okay.
Okay.
Now, say for example, I wanted to be able to, because I wanted to assign. Let me get these IDs. I don't know what the IDs look like, but let me say I want to attach ID number 4. I want to select fixed assets by default, isn't it? So
Mm.
what I could come here and I could come down here and say uh, select list dot value is equals to 4, isn't it?
Mm.
Now, would that work? Let me write again. I'm expecting 4 would be fixed
as a
asset.
fixed asset.
So when I run it, the first one is consumable. Run it again. The first one is consumable. Run it, and I can run it continuously. It will never select 4. Why is that? Reason being, what the query will do is, while it is still waiting for this data to return, it will execute this portion of the code. But by the time it's executing this portion of the code, this data has not been updated as far as our object is concerned. So that's why the asynchronous behavior of JavaScript sometimes becomes a disadvantage to us, and that's why we call in the deferreds. Are you seeing where I'm going with this?
Uh,
Yeah, so let's use a deferred and see how this comes into play. So again, I'll simply come over here. What I can do is I'll declare a function called get types. Then in this function, I'll move everything inside it like that, isn't it?
mhm.
So like that. Then once I'm done with that function, I'll declare a new default. So I'll say const dfd equals new jQuery dot deferred. Well, I said you can leave out the new keyword, it will still be able to work out. It will put it for you. Then here, once this data has finished loading, I'll simply say dfd dot resolve. Okay? Okay? Then outside that get JSON function, sorry, this should be outside. Then outside getting the JSON, I'll return a limited version of the deferred, which is I'll return a promise object of the deferred. So what I'm simply saying, execute this function, and once everything has been done successfully, then give me the promise. So I'm saying this function is going to execute. Once it is done, it promises to tell me that it is done, then I cannot be able to do something else. Okay? So because I wanted to select fixed assets as the default item, so I'll come down here and I'll say execute this function. But because it's a deferred, wait until it is done, then execute the following anonymous function. And inside that anonymous function, simply take this particular list and set the value to 4. So I run it again, and hopefully it should select fixed assets as you can see right now.
Mm.
So now, what it will do is, it will execute this function. And because it has a deferred, it will wait until the function is done executing, which means the promise tells it, now I'm done executing what you want. Then once that is done, then I'll now be able to assign the value that I want to it, and now it should be able to pick the 4, and I can pick the 8. There was also an 8, which is the last element in the list, as you can see. So that way now, when I'm loading my forms, I can be able to pre-populate them with correct data that is coming from the database,
Mm.
or from an API call, so to speak. Now,
Okay.
that
So
is, yes,
is that what is normally used to do a tick? Like after it has done all that,
then you
the
can
user
select,
input
yes,
does a tick
yes, that's exactly what to do. Or maybe I can be loading
or
terms
change
and
color.
conditions. Yes, I can be loading terms and conditions for you. So once I've loaded all the terms and conditions, then I
Mm.
enable the next button.
Okay.
So I just want to show you the entire form, but I
Mm.
want to delay some operations to be done until some
Mm.
certain data has been brought, they have been processed, then I'm now able to perform those certain operations. Now the good thing here is I don't know how long it's going to take
Mm.
to bring back that data. It could be 10 milliseconds, it could be 3 seconds, it could be 100 milliseconds, I don't know. But what the query would do is it will listen. When that particular action has been completed, then it will return a promise showing that it has been done. So when it is done, then I'm able to do the next thing that I wanted to be able to do.
Right.
As I have said, this is one of the most important features of jQuery. I know JavaScript uses promises. Right now, we have fetch, we have async. You can execute an asynchronous function, and of course, you await. it will still be able to give you the same effect. But I like the jQuery implementation because it's much cleaner, it's much simpler. And the good thing is that you can actually chain them.
Mm.
Okay?
Yeah.
Back up to Kosawa so that I can show us how to chain. I'm, I'm,
Yeah. You
I'm,
see.
I'm, I'm insisting on this because we are going to be doing a movies database, and
Mm.
these ones are going to come into play so much. Rather, when you're doing your practical application, this is the kind of
Mm.
thing that you'll be doing, especially when you have to process something after data has been brought back to you.
Okay.
All right?
I wanted to get the logic why we are doing it and why we are doing now. I've gotten it.
Okay. So actually, when I was delaying it for 2 seconds, this was deliberate just to show us
Yeah.
that how JavaScript works. It is asynchronous. Okay, it will execute
Mm.
regardless of whether your data has been returned or not. It will continue executing the next thing,
Okay.
but we want it to only execute when certain conditions have been met.
Mm. Mm.
Okay,
Understood.
I can we chain it?
Yes.
Now chaining it means we want to do two operations. So I want to do two things. So I want to get types and I want to get categories. So I think get categories should have been. Let me see. I was probably working on it somewhere here. No, I think don't worry about this particular portion of code. This is not part of our training. I just want to use the API to demonstrate something. Run twice. So there's this API for operations, and I want to get inventory categories. So I want to get inventory categories. Okay.
Mm.
So here again, let's say we have another function that says get in get categories, right? So get categories. Sorry, is it raining wherever you are? The way it's raining here.
No, it's not.
They told us the rains were over. My bad, but it's okay. It's a
Mm.
blessing. So here again, I'll declare another uh, deferred. I'll say jQuery dot defer.
We did accept, and you have another DFD somewhere.
No, because they are scoped. You see, when you're declaring
Oh
variables,
yeah.
this one is
Yeah.
scoped within this function, so it cannot be accessed outside the function. Same as this one. Okay.
Okay.
So I just execute the whole of this, but I'll change this one to get inventory categories, right?
Mm.
Then this one will give me, instead of type, I'll have
That
category.
category.
I'll have category again, a category name. Okay. Then here,
Mm.
let me declare another constant for
For category.
category list.
Mm.
Category list. So here I'll say it is category list. Okay.
So you don't
So
have to. You don't have to const category list.
I'll pick the category list here and change it down here.
No, I'm asking up there.
Yeah, I love to. I can call it. I want to show us how to chain it, how to call the two
Okay.
of them together.
Okay.
So of course, when I'm done, I'll return a limited version of the deferred down here outside get JSON, of course, because this one has to execute and finish. Then I promise to tell it once this has finished executing. That's the whole point. Okay.
Mm.
So I need to come
Mm.
back to my interface and create another select. Maybe I remove these spaces. Let me create another select here. Give it category list. Then I'll give it category list like that. Huh? So of course, I'll simply say this one is display. I want them to be on top of each other, which is flex. Then flex direction equals column. Huh? It's wrong. So they'll just be on top of each other. Should be column. Yeah, so I put uh, gap here. Well, for each select, I simply put margin bottom of say 10 pixels, 30 pixels. Again, I'm just trying to make it look nice so that they're separated from each other, like that. So now we have that select list, we have that list. So this is category list, and I come to jQuery here, and I have category list. Now, I have not called this function, but I want to call the functions together. What I want to do is, I'll call that function, then once I'm done getting this function, then I'll call this other function. Sorry. I'll also call this other function called get categories. So get categories will only be done if the types get categories will only execute if the type was successful and after the type is successful. Okay, so let's run that and see. Then you can see now I have this is okay. So once this is finished loading, then I can load these other ones. Okay,
Mm.
and that's a good thing because what I wanted to do here is when I pick this category, I want to select the first one over here. Then once I select that one, then maybe I'm able to filter out. Once I select four, I only pick categories for four down here. Or maybe the first one I select five, then the second one I select six, which is lands and buildings. So I want to select fixed assets. Then I want to select lands and buildings. Okay. So
Okay.
here, when this is done, I'll simply say select list dot value is 4. Then when this is done, now this is the chaining I was talking about. I'll also execute the following callback function, and I'll say this category list dot value is equals to 6. So while it is loading, it will be able to select fixed assets and lands and buildings by default. I'm doing it that so that when I run it, you're able to see it does exactly that.
Mm. Mm.
Okay. Now
Yeah.
that's the practical way of how we would use these deferreds, and this is actually how the chaining works. So you can see I've done the first one, call the following callback function, then done the second one, call the following callback function, and I can do that over and over again. So this makes my JavaScript code synchronous instead of being asynchronous.
So you are forcing it
Execute
to
once you finish
execute
doing this,
procedurally.
then do this. Don't just continue doing something else before the data comes back or before you're done with this particular operation. Okay, as I said, we are going to use a lot of this in our movies database. Then you'll be able to see how it exactly works out. Okay, now, I'm only doing this because I know as we are going to do our project, there's a lot of things we're going to put in together. Like when it comes to JavaScript, we know how to work with JavaScript, but we know that jQuery has beautiful things that allows us to do with JavaScript. Then we'll be able to see how we are using PHP and how to manipulate this data that comes from this. So as you can see, this is actually coming from my local PHP server. So I have written that to enable me be able to fetch data in form of a REST API. Then I want to come and be able to process it on my user interface. Okay. So I'll give us an assignment where we will get a list of users from online. Then I want us to select a particular user by default. So in that particular case, I want you to use a deferred and see if you are going to be able to see how that works out. Okay, don't worry. I'll provide you with the URL to be able to fetch the users list. Then from there, you should be able to select a particular user. So I'm going to write that assignment in the how do we call it in the uh, in the class chat, so you can be able to follow it from there. Eliud, I saw you had left. Sorry about that. You missed anything? Okay, so I think let me share the URL where we're going to extract the data and the actual assignment as I share this particular video.
So
Okay.
you are saying you are I lost you at some point. So you are saying you are
I'm
now
saying
forcing
I'm
the
going to give
student.
you a URL to get some data because you can't use
Okay.
my data. So I'm going
Okay.
to give you a URL which will fetch you some data. You fetch that
Yeah.
data, populate it on a
Yeah.
drop-down list, then select a
Yeah.
particular value. That will be your task.
All right.
Similar to what I
Let me
have
put
done.
let me put down. So you get the URL.
I'll give you the URL. When you run, actually, let me just check the URL uh, API with user details. So there's one that I had done before.
I'm now getting the flow of these jQuery thing. The way
Yeah,
we do
it's a
that.
very powerful tool.
Mm. I found the JavaScript to be a bit not so easy. jQuery, jQuery,
Yeah,
the flow
jQuery
is easy.
makes JavaScript looks like a child's play. Yeah, so this is a URL they're going to use. So if you run
Okay.
this URL, it's going to give you this object.
Okay.
Then with this object now, I want you to be able to pick a user. Say, I want you to pick a user called Brovco. Or I want you to give me a user called, actually this is just one data.
Mm.
No, this is just one. I wanted one with multiple. No, it actually has multiple.
Okay.
Compound is not reading it nicely. So name, okay. Result is, title is Mr. Rose Brovco location, blah, blah, blah. Is this only one set of data or it's more than that? Let me prettify it. No, actually, this is only one set. This is only one user. Let me say multiple users. Okay, so REST API. So let me see this. This one that I done last time. I think let me refer to that one. The one that we had done there last time. I call it jQuery, and I call it. Did I call it Ajax? No, I didn't call it Ajax. I call it Ajax JQ. Was it here really? Let me check. Let me check. Let me check. I think there's somewhere I wrote it, so I'll need the URL. It's not here.
Mm.
Well, let me get you the URL because I know I can find it. Then we'll be able to see
Okay.
how to go